What's fun to know about Darin is that this guy has a spirit about him that just wants you to be around him. They're building a business in a space that's really crowded. It's the internet space, and particularly e-commerce. I'm going to let him tell you about that. What happens when you're a part of the aura of Irish Titan, the firm he started, is you just want to know more about it, and you feel like you're in the presence of people who know what they're doing. One of their big ingredients is they believe in fun at work, which is why we've asked Darin to come and speak. So please join me in welcoming Darin Lynch from Irish Titan to the stage.
Thanks, Paul. Good morning, everyone. I'm excited to be here and talk about fun. That's a lot of pressure, actually, to talk about fun. So, there's that fear of public speaking, and like the worst thing would be if people left and said, "Man, that guy's a bore." So we'll try not to do that. But the concept of fun is something I believe very deeply in because I feel like good fun and hard work are not mutually exclusive. And so I've built a company that is hopefully a part of and have a lot of traditions as part of that. And that's what we'll talk about today. Okay? Fun's universal. Who doesn't like having fun? Only fun haters, right? And so it's self-defined, and what we've tried to do at Irish Titan is embed that into what we do, and of course that takes on the manifestation of some of the things that I started with. I think through some of the descriptions and pictures that were routed, it's pretty clear that I try to have fun. I gave Paul a lot of material to work with what got routed, and I don't remember exactly what, but in some of the pictures, I am a Kiss fan. I've seen them 28 times. Not every time in full face paint. I've taken each of my daughters to concerts in face paint. I think a picture was routed when my daughters and I went to Ireland this summer, and we were in Game of Thrones regalia. We do have a bat pole at our office, so those are some things that we've incorporated into the workplace to create a spirit of fun that we'll talk about a little bit. So I think a good place to start might be my background just a little bit. I'm from Iowa, go Hawkeyes. I know there's always a few in the crowd, right? I grew up on a farm in a small town, and when I say small town, I mean small town. We had 59 people in my class, 61 if you count the 2 foreign exchange students. I don't know what they did to get sentenced to my small little hometown, right? But I grew up, I had a pretty good sense of humor, but also a pretty strong sense of purpose. I think, our parents instill a lot of those sorts of things in us. And I liked shenanigans. I was always kind of getting in like charming, at least I thought charming, mischievous trouble. Nothing really all that bad. So I took that spirit with me to the workplace. Irish Titan, as Paul mentioned real briefly, is a digital agency, and we specialize in e-commerce, complex websites, and digital strategy. That's our what, which is a bit of a reference to Simon Sinek. I'll probably talk about him a little bit. I have a unique background for the founder of a company like that because most of the time, a founder for a company like that is a designer or a developer, or maybe they work at an agency and spin out and take a book of business with them. I had a corporate IT background, okay? And so this journey in my professional career to lead Irish Titan, there were a few seminal moments that I think carved out that sense of fun that I've tried to incorporate in Irish Titan, which is the reason I'm talking about this a little bit. So my first job was at Principal Financial Group down in Des Moines. It was a great company, still is. I learned a lot. I think everybody benefits from working at a big company at some point in their career. Moved up here after 5 years at Principal, so I've been up here 21 years now and worked at ESP Software Solutions, then Wilson's Leather, and then Second Swing Golf, which I always joke is ironic because I'm a terrible golfer, and I mean that. Then after Second Swing, I started Irish Titan, and I did some consulting at the beginning of Irish Titan's history so that I could have some income while I was getting Irish Titan up and running. But Second Swing filed bankruptcy while I was there. And going through that experience is what really prompted me to start Irish Titan. Because at that point, I decided that I was no longer going to have my success or failure determined by somebody else. I was going to succeed or fail on my own merits or lack thereof. So that's what really prompted me to start Irish Titan. And in giving some thought to the kind of company that I wanted to create, I was very intentional. There were certain things I wanted us to do and be in. So from the perspective of what industry we're in, the e-commerce, digital space, I wanted that. There were certain elements of our culture that were important to me. People that are familiar with our space know that most companies in our space use a lot of contractors, freelancers, maybe offshore resources, all of which is fine. But from the very beginning, I wanted an employee model because that was the sort of family I was trying to build at Irish Titan. So I was really very intentional about what I was trying to build. And fun was part of that. And the reason fun was part of that is because I had had two real specific experiences with fun in the workplace, extended periods of fun. And one was at Wilson's Leather, and then the second was at Second Swing Golf. So I was at Wilson's Leather for 4.5 years, Second Swing for about 3. And at each of those, for over a year, we reached this point where we were having fun at work. And fun isn't just jokes and one-liners and rubber chickens. It's not foosball tables and ping pong tables and bean bags. It's a sense of kind of effortless performance when you are having fun at work. And so that's a combination of a few things, right? It's a combination of the people you hire. It's a combination of how you carry yourself, which then starts to bleed into how other people operate. And really there are 3 things, I think, that contribute to how we carry ourselves that creates this sense of fun. One is a sense of humor. Everybody likes to laugh. 2 is the concept of taking your work seriously, but not yourself. Being self-deprecating is an immensely helpful trait. It helps you get through when you're maybe making some mistakes, if you can laugh at yourself, because we all make mistakes, right? And then lastly is a sense of camaraderie and community and connection between people. If you have those 3 things at work, you're going to create a sense of fun, whether you have foosball tables or not, okay? So at Wilson's was the first time we experienced that. We were really changing the culture of the IT department at Wilson's because who likes an IT department, right? The reputations aren't good. And we wanted to change that. And so it takes a long time to make change like that. And we were able to achieve that. And for about 1.5 years then of the 4.5 years I was there, we were flying high. We were doing really good work. The business units, like marketing and sourcing, et cetera, they actually liked working with us. And when you're in IT and people like working with you, you know something's going well. So we had that. And at that point, I wasn't all that conscious of how rare that was. Well, then at Second Swing Golf, we changed over the culture there. And the stores started to work with us much better. We developed an e-commerce presence, et cetera. Had that same sort of experience. And then that was where I started to really realize that is a special sort of experience and set of circumstances that makes work more fun. And who doesn't want to come in and work with people you like, have a sense of humor, take your work really seriously, but not take yourself seriously? So when Second Swing then filed bankruptcy and I started Irish Titan, that was top of mind, amongst some other things. I would talk with some people about the company I was starting and what I wanted to incorporate into it, and that sense of fun was part of what I would talk about. To a person, each of those people I was talking to then would say, well, I wouldn't worry about that. That's probably lightning in a bottle. You're probably not going to replicate that. And so one of my favorite sayings is, I don't need a yes man, I already know I'm right. And the person that told me that said that Richard Nixon said it. I don't know if he did or not. I've never looked it up because I love the saying so much. For all I know, the guy that told me that could have made it up himself. But I have a little bit of that in me, right? And so when I was told that we wouldn't be able to replicate that in my typically defiant sort of fashion, I thought to myself, well, to hell with that, I'm going to. And so from the very beginning, we tried to incorporate fun into Irish Titan, okay? So over the years, we've developed a lot of traditions at Irish Titan, all of which are intended to create that sense of fun so that when we're working hard, we're still having fun. Because there's that saying, work hard, play hard. I want to do that at the same time. Okay, I want to blend those together. And quick aside, that concept of blending that Paul talked about earlier is probably the most specific, tangible thing that I've learned from Paul. I reference that all the time, and I attribute it to him all the time. I have blended really specifically, I can think of examples with family, fitness, friends, fun, and blended those together at work. So if I'm aboard today, at least take the concept of blending out of here, okay? So, Irish Titan. Some of the things that we've done that I think can hopefully serve as inspiration for ideas that you might adopt yourself, it's a long list. And so we do a monthly company meeting, Traction. We've implemented, self-implemented Traction. And we have a monthly company meeting. Every month when new employees are announced, they give a quick description, and then they have to perform their high school fight song. And luckily, I shouldn't say this because I was going to backfire on me. Luckily, we implemented that about 4 years ago, so I didn't have to do it. But that's become quite a thing. So we've had people perform in various fashions. We've had spoken word. We had a lady bring in a harp, which was pretty impressive. We had a guy rent one of those inflatable Tyrannosaurus Rex costumes and walk around. You can check those out on our YouTube channel. They're all out there. Additionally, at each employee's 1 year anniversary, we give them an Irish Titan rugby with their name and their employee number embroidered on it. And also what we do is talk about their balconies and basements, okay? So that's a StrengthsFinder concept. We have adopted StrengthsFinders probably not as deeply and intentionally as we could, but everybody that gets pretty far into the interviewing process, we have them take StrengthsFinders and use that as some talking points. That concept of balconies and basements talks about your strengths and how your strengths are both positive and negative, right? Because everything that we're good at is something that can backfire on us too. And so when people are hired, we're not quite at that point where we can make fun of them at their first meeting, and they're already going through the fire with that fight song. But 1 year in, our culture is such that people take their work seriously, but not themselves. And they can be self-deprecating. So at their 1 year anniversary, we can talk about their balconies and basements. So, for example, one of mine is strategic. And the balcony is that you can think ahead, connect dots, etc. The basement really makes fun of that, like chases shiny objects, thinks have things figured out, moves too fast, doesn't cover detail, things like that. You can say those sorts of things 1 year in, right? And so that's an example of where we're having fun at work, but there's still some meat to it, okay? Additionally, we have what we call a St. Titan's Day party every year on St. Patrick's Day. It started, like a lot of things, I think, unintentionally in terms of becoming a tradition. And we had the first one, actually, when Paul and I were sharing an office. In retrospect, I thought to ask ahead of time that was going to be okay. And it went really well. And so between that year and the next year, one of the employees said, hey, are we going to have the party again next year? I said, well, of course. And they said, well, what are we going to do? And I didn't want to plan it. So I said, here's what we're going to do. All the new employees from last year are the ones responsible for planning it. So that became a tradition where every year, the people responsible for planning it are the people who are new from the prior year. Which means every year has taken on a drastically different sort of feel. 1 year we had a couple of guys that were really good with their hands, with making things. And one of them actually made a whiskey fountain. That's like the coolest thing ever. A couple of years after that, we had some people on the committee there was a girl whose parents make wine. And so she had bottles of Irish Titan wine made, okay? And someone else that year was really good with carving wood and like designing it and carving into it. And so we had some games. We're a highly competitive office. So we had some games made where we were going around the office having fun and then, of course, winning, hopefully. So our St. Titan's Day party actually has become quite a tradition that is super fun. And it's every year on or around St. Patrick's Day. Okay, so those are some of the traditions that we've created that have helped instill this sense of fun. Now, I think part of the beauty of what Paul's done with this breakfast, amongst other things, is hopefully we all walk away from here inspired with things that we can actually take to the office and act on. And so there are some things that you can think about incorporating into your office that will hopefully feel authentic. Because really the dangers and downsides to incorporating fun into work, there are a few, just like balconies and basements, right? First, it has to be authentic. If you do something that's manufactured, it's not going to work. So if you don't have a fun office right now, don't start with a foosball table, okay? Secondly, you can't lose sight of what you're trying to accomplish with your business. As much as we've been intentional about having a fun workplace that's engaging, our clients don't pay us for fun. They pay us for business first, online second. That's our why, to reference Simon Sinek. So if we lose sight of that, then we're going to lose sight of what our business is and we're not going to be viable. So you have to be authentic and you can't lose sight of your business. And then lastly, and this is just brutal honesty and transparency, it's harder to have fun when I'll start over. It's easy to have fun when things are good. It's more important to have fun when things aren't, okay? We've grown pretty consistently over the years, but we've grown a lot in the last year, a little bit ahead of plan, a lot ahead of plan. And that's caused some problems. It's actually been more important in the last year for us to keep that sense of fun probably than any other time in our history. Because if you think about that employee model that I mentioned, employee retention is hard enough for all of us. In our space, people move a lot. And when we're not using contractors and freelancers and offshore resources, we can't scale real quickly with changes that we're not anticipating. So employee retention is really important. And so in those times of challenge, having fun is even more important, okay? So the authenticity to having fun, remember what your business is in, and doing that when times are tough are important. But some examples of things that you might want to incorporate if you haven't done them yet. An easy one, monthly celebrations, okay? We have monthly birthday luncheons, and everybody whose birthday it is that month gets to pick where the food comes from. That's an easy thing to adopt. If you don't celebrate wins at work, that's an easy way to start to create some fun. Whether you're a sales-based organization, and who isn't really, right? When you close a deal, when you launch a project, when you reach certain company milestones, those are easy ways to start to incorporate some fun. Another easy one, turn on music. Turn on music. We always have music playing at the office. We did used to be able to hear each other's music in the office. Let your employees pick the music. Have some contests at work. Have a Fitbit challenge. Have a steps challenge. Those sorts of things. Those are easy ways to start to create a little bit more fun environment if you're not already doing that. And then if you are, you can start to incorporate things like a St. Titan's Day party or a bat pole in the office or things like that, right? So that's it. That's fun. That's why fun is important in the workspace. It's been a big part of how we've grown and how we've retained our employees. It results in employee engagement. It increases productivity, and it's really worked for us. So fun and hard work are not mutually exclusive. Fun's good for you, it's good for your employees, it's good for your workspace. So make sure to have some fun at work. Thanks.
Thank you. So there is a question here. It says table discussion question inside your panel where you took some notes. And what I'm going to ask you to discuss is, how does your satisfaction on fun affect your leadership? That's you. When you go back to the workplace and people are expecting you to lead, how does the fun in your life affect your leadership? Ready, set, go. Here's the silliest joke. Wasn't that fun? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I don't know about you guys, but aren't you just dying to hear Darin's high school fight song? He gave me permission to ask that question, but not permission to make him do it.
Right.
So you're going to have to track him down for that.
I'm recovering from a cold. I can't.
Yeah. But something tells me that back at the shop, you're going to have to do that here pretty soon. I loved the way you described your culture. We describe the culture at Good Leadership as intensely casual. And that creates a conversation about what we expect with our clients and in the office and all the rest of that stuff. How would you describe in a really short way what the culture is at Irish Titan?
The punchline to how I describe it is professional shenanigans. And so I interview everybody still in our hiring process, usually towards the end. And I do that from a culture perspective. And I talk about our golden circle, using Simon Sinek, that model with business first, online second is our why. I talk about our internally defined values, which are POTUS, passion, ownership, teamwork, impact, and skills. And I have talking points for each of those. Then I wrap that up with professional shenanigans, little aside that says that underneath the covers of all of that, that's the sort of environment we have.
So has that ever gone wrong? When has that gotten out of hand?
Well, besides in my own head sometimes having to correct I am in charge of HR, which is probably a recipe for disaster. But there have been times I've had to pull people in and say, we can't really talk like that, we can't behave like that. Apologies in advance to HR professionals. I know there's one at the table. I think a lot of HR policies really originate when a boss or a manager doesn't have the courage to pull somebody in their office and say, don't do that again. And so I've tried to just have those kind of conversations. We don't have an official dress code. I've had to tell people a few times, don't wear that again. That's just, that's not appropriate. And that saves me the time of writing a policy that punishes everybody else.
Very interesting, yeah. There you go, okay. Just for the record, we love HR. We talked a little bit before the breakfast got started today just about what you do to refill your tank. You know that in order to make sure things are fun at work, you also have to be refilling the tank outside of work. So what do you do for that?
The number one thing that I either try to do or do really is play basketball, and that's one of the blending things that I referenced up here with friends, fun, and fitness. If I could play basketball every day, I would. I used to play about 3-4 days a week pretty competitively at lunch with some guys at St. Louis Park. We played together now for 20 years. And it's hard for me to play right now just because my schedule's a little bit in flux, and if I'm going to be 10 minutes late, I miss a game and a half, and then it's not worth it. But that's the number one thing that I feel recharged by. It's competitive, it's fun, it's a good workout, etc. Absent of that, I have a new dog. Well, he's a year now, a Great Dane. So he's awesome, Ronan. So I actually, a month or two ago, started to get in a pretty good habit. I'm an early morning kind of guy. I take him for a walk without my music or my phone and kind of zen out a little bit, and that's been pretty helpful since I can't play basketball as much as I'd like.
Yeah, the dog helps with blending too. Absolutely, absolutely. I just dropped my oldest child off, my last child, for the last year of undergrad. You just dropped your first child off for the first year of college.
Right.
How did that change you?
Probably a couple ways. I didn't feel as old as I thought I might. I'll probably feel like that. I probably feel like that when my youngest goes to college. I think that on one hand, she's going to the University of Iowa. That's where I went. And that surprises me that she went there because I'm a pretty vocal Hawkeye fan, but I'm also pretty vocal about make up your own mind. That's a really important value of mine. So I was surprised she went there. I kind of, in some respects, it brought back some memories from college that I was kind of wishing she'd go somewhere else. On a serious note, though, I think one thing I walked away from that day thinking was pretty proud of how amicable my divorce has been, which is a long time in my past now. But my ex and I are really amicable. She and I and our 2 daughters, we went out for breakfast that morning together. We dropped her off together. We didn't drive down together because her family's there, and my ex, so she stayed for a few days. But it felt really good to be able to drop her off together.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great explanation. You talked about effortless performance is what fun is for you. I agree. I love to talk about with my coaching clients what part of your work is effortless. So that's the question for you. What part of your work right now as the leader at Irish Titan is effortless for you and why?
Quite honestly, things like this are either effortless performance or close to it. I enjoy being out there, talking with people. It's easy for me to talk about Irish Titan and the principles that I have, et cetera. Doing that sort of thing at work is easy inside our 4 walls. There's a leadership model that talks about 5 archetypes of leadership. They're trailblazer, coach, manager, tactician, and architect are the 5 archetypes. And trailblazer and coach are the 2 that I tend to have some energy around. And so doing those sorts of things at work, and coaching people, inspiring them, hopefully inspiring them, knock on flesh, is something that comes easy, and being out in the community comes easy. Right now, as I alluded to, we've gone through some growth, and I've had to step in and hands-on run some teams, which is integrator type of responsibilities using EOS speak, and I can do that okay, but that's where it's not effortless right now. Hopefully there's light at the end of the tunnel there. I'm pretty far down the path with some help from Paul, actually, with some advice on some people that I'm looking at hiring into that role.
Just for the record, did you call me this morning to talk about outfits?
No, I did not.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Part of my job is to say what you're thinking. Yeah.
You're only missing the green shoes.
Yeah, that, Note to self, green shoes. Okay, so the focus of today and of the last 3 meetings has been on aspirations, this idea that we're obligated to help people see what's possible. So let's talk about that in the context of Irish Titan. So my guess is that you think Irish Titan will be here 20 years from now.
Yes.
And 7 years from now, are you still going to be the leader?
Probably.
Okay, so
20 years, no.
So what can we expect from Irish Titan in terms of a vision or the aspirations over the next 7 years?
Sure. And before answering that, I do want to congratulate Paul. Thank you for having me here. When he mentioned earlier, we've kind of grown up together with our companies alongside each other, and it's been really impressive to see what he's done here. So let's give Paul a round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, I do spend a lot of time thinking about our vision and where we're going. One of the reasons I named Irish Titan, was because I wanted to create something bigger and better than myself. That's why it's not called Lynch Technologies or something like that, which would also be kind of a boring name. But if you keep that in mind, that's a reason that I want Irish Titan to be around 3, 7, 10, 20 years from now. And so the vision the shape that will take remains to be seen. There are probably a few sacred cows, if you will. Never say never, but I doubt we'll ever change from a digital agency model. I doubt we'll ever change from a business first, online second kind of model. We'll continue to grow. My vision is to get us to around 75 to 90 people. Not that the head count's end all be all, but that's easy for all of us to picture. And that sort of operation, there's some financial reasons that works, but also you start to get beyond that, and I feel like we might be too big, so to speak, which is ironic because it's not like we'd be Target. But you start to get beyond that, and people can hide in the shadows a little bit. And I do quarterly one-on-ones with all of our employees, and ironically, one of our developers, which usually they're not the most eloquent and creative necessarily in their communication, said that, I was describing this to him, and he said, so you never want Irish Titan to get so big that someone can be so small that they don't matter. I was like, Brian, that's great. And I wrote that down.
Yeah.
It's that poor Richards after a few years.
Sure.
So that's why that's a little bit of a breaking point that we'll probably pause around there.
Well, certainly, when you grow that much, it will take a different kind of management to actually do that. So that's good that you have the insight for that. Let's give it up for Darin Lynch.